of swearing at her after she shot his dog. Right.
Bruh. I'm not gonna apologize for shit. You killed my dog.
I can't believe that there are people that would do something like this. It's so sick and twisted.
Is there a spooky ghost here?
Welcome back, my friends, to the Witching Hour. If you're new here, I am Lance. If you're returning, welcome back. Today, I saw a video by a channel called BeAmazed. We haven't checked out this channel. Creepiest homes with insanely disturbing backstories. The thumbnail looked pretty interesting, and I kind of skimmed through it. It looked pretty interesting. So let's check this out. I'll leave the link for BeAmazed down below. Yeah, let's get right into it.
A derelict house of horrors built at the top of a lonesome cliff face hides a dark tale of illness and suffering. The history of this isolated mansion is fraught with pain, but it's far from the only example. From an abandoned townhouse populated by moving mannequins to an old mausoleum with a chilling secret, come with me as we investigate the dark histories of some of the creepiest places in the world.
Oh, that's a nice little animated intro you got there. That's very nice. I like that.
The Mountains of Madness.
The Mountains of Madness. Who? I would hate to see if you were a sleepwalker. You don't want to walk off of this building. That's for goddamn sure. I'll tell you that much. Could you imagine if you're a sleepwalker? Oh, you wouldn't last too long in this house. This be. If this doesn't scream evil mastermind base, I don't know what is. Lair, if you will.
Deep within the Mexican state of Nuevo Leon, nestled high among the mountains, leers a crude monument many view as a testament to misery. La Huasteca House jots painfully from the side of a sheer cliff face, and a single glance tells you it's got bad vibes. Why would anyone build a house here? Who would want to? Well, the story is even stranger than it seems.
Who's the contractor who did this building? Could you imagine, like, trying to build around, like, oh, jeez. It's tough for people to build on flat land, let alone the side of a mountaintop.
Back in 1955, an esteemed scientist named Eduardo
a mad scientist,
Aguirre Pequeño, commissioned the three-story mansion to live in with his family. He claimed he needed
that's not a family home.
somewhere isolated to conduct some important research, but what that research was less clear. Regardless, 5 years later in 1960, the house was finished and he and his family moved in. Days turned to nights, weeks turned to months, sun turned to storm, and still Eduardo remained in his house doing God knows what. Supposedly, locals reported hearing agonized screams echoing down the cliffside. Had the scientist gone mad? Were his family okay? Well, it turns out those pained wails weren't theirs. They were Eduardo's. Shockingly, after he'd settled into the isolated abode, he'd infected himself with a rare and dangerous tropical disease called Pinta, in an effort to learn more about it. Pinta causes itchy, painful lesions all across the body, and if those stories of echoed screams are anything to go by, Eduardo had it really bad. How long the tortured scientist remained in the mountains suffering in the name of science, we can't be entirely sure. We do know he made a recovery at some point, though, and eventually left the house along with his family. Maybe the memories of his suffering had left it feeling less like a home and more like a prison. Ultimately, the House of Pain would be expropriated by the government in the 80s. There were plans to turn it into a museum of some kind, but this never came to pass, leaving nothing but a ghostly shell. Now at the mercy of the elements and the antics of daring urban explorers, the derelict Huasteca house has been left to rot. Which is sad. What Eduardo did should be commemorated, not forgotten. But what if there was a different, more sinister reason he abandoned the place? After all, it must have cost a bomb to build. Why just leave? Something isn't quite adding up. One thing's for sure, though. You'll never catch me going to La Huasteca house.
La Huasteca.
Minjongo.
That was wild. That was wild. Excuse me. You gonna make that's only for rich people. Like, who can afford to go to some place like that? You know, only people who can afford to go to the Egyptian pyramids and stuff like that. I can see that, but I can see a big lawsuit. All I can see is people falling in front of that building, looking over that thing and just falling over, and just you're straight down. You're straight down that mountain. That's all I see is like death in the house.
Ghost house. What comes to mind when I show you?
However, going back to the thing, at least he wasn't torturing his family, so that's a good thing. He was seen with his family after the fact. He infected himself, which, wow, scientists, let me tell you, they're built differently.
This house. It might look like somewhere Voldemort would hide one of his Horcruxes, but it's actually a real place, and it's much scarier than any fiction. This is the Liu family mansion, a long-abandoned, overgrown structure in the vast countryside of Minjiang, Taiwan. But it's better known by another name, the Minjiang Ghost House. Urban legends are abound about the ruined building, and students from nearby universities frequently trespass as a test of courage. But why? Built in 1929, the house was originally designed to be the home of a wealthy businessman and his family. Yet by the 1950s, it was totally abandoned. Nobody really knows what happened to the family or why they fled, but something terrible happened in that 20-odd year period. Some say that the maid had an affair with the head of the Liu family, and when his wife discovered the betrayal, she became incensed and attacked her. According to those people, the maid ultimately drowned in the well outside, and her spirit still haunts the grounds. Apparently, if you visit today, there are what look like ashes in the bottom of the well. Hers? And it's not just kids that tell these spooky stories. Taiwanese soldiers who camped in the area reported strange goings-on too. What exactly, we don't know, but suppose...
Was it confirmed that the maid got killed? First, I heard they fled, and then next thing I heard, the next account, there was a maid that got, like, offed. A lot of little accounts here, aren't there, at this estate?
Supposedly, the shrill howling of ghosts can be heard in the middle of the night. If for some twisted reason you think this sounds like a good time, some intrepid entrepreneurs set up a cafe nearby. So after a day of ghost hunting, you can unwind with some chamomile tea, which sounds a little more up my alley. After all, if the souls of the damned really walk our mortal coil, people may as well make a profit off it. Better make good use of your time on this mortal coil by liking this video and subscribing to my channel.
A ghost with an
All finished up?
Cute.
Nice one. Let's venture back into the darkness. Haunted hospital.
Ooh.
Hospitals are nasty places at the best of times, but abandoned hospitals, they're spine-chilling. This is Newsham Park Hospital in Liverpool, England. Opened in 1874, it was originally an orphanage, but the children who lived there were subject to the draconian Victorian rules and regulations of the time. Particularly cruel, on the top floor, there's an attic lined with cupboards that misbehaving children would be locked inside. This lasted until 1954, when it was transformed into a hospital specializing in mental health. Then in 1992, a nearby lunatic asylum was closed, forcing all the patients there to relocate to Newsham. It's unclear how well they were treated, but with such an influx of them, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't well. Officially closed in 1997, the halls have been left to rot ever since.
The year after I graduated, so, oh wow, that's when it closed? Yeah, sounds about right.
But the story is far from over. Since its abandonment, Newsham has been rumored to be incredibly haunted, and as such, it's become a popular spot for ghost tours. And on one of them, this snap was taken. Looks pretty normal, right? Until you look a little closer. Just there. See it? According to everyone there, whoever that is, they weren't one of the group. Indeed, the photographer insists he'd only noticed the eerie figure the next day. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, I can't think of a less enjoyable.
She is a little bit more transparent than, yeah, I can see. There's another little face right there too, look. There's another little face right here, right under that face, if you see. There's a face here, there's a face here. There's two little faces. There's two little faces. Is there another little face? There looks like another little face right there. No, but that's definitely a little face right there. That's another little face, and there's another little. That's definitely a face here, but there's a little face right by her shoulder right here too. Interesting. I thought that kind of why she kind of looked kind of darkened, but I can see why she's kind of like transparent through his clothes. That's the reason why I see his shoulder right here.
Rebel night out.
That's interesting.
The Mannequin Manor. I hate mannequins. They give me the creeps. So when I first heard of John Lawson House, I was none too happy. Named after the man who built it, 80 miles north of New York City, this mysterious house sits in the quiet village of New Hamburg. For such a small town, the area has seen its share of tragedy. In 1871, a train collision caused a colossal explosion just 200 feet from the house. Yet the house itself escaped unscathed. And in 1877, a huge fire ravaged the area, destroying buildings indiscriminately, all except for the John Lawson House. Fast forward to 2016, and locals began noticing something very odd. Strange mannequins had appeared on the front porch wearing old-timey clothing. Nobody had seen anyone moving them there, and the house had long been abandoned. So who was responsible? Nobody knew. Time passed, but things only got stranger. The mannequins were spotted in different positions in clothing day to day, yet still no one ever saw the person moving them.
What?
The more superstitious locals speculated that they were possessed by the souls of the lives lost in the tragedies years before. Others assumed it was just a prank. But what about a third option? What if some deranged local with an obsession with dolls had been setting them up day in, day out for reasons unknown? The dedication here makes me think this is much more than a prank. Unfortunately, any answers seemed beyond our reach. And then, just as quickly as they appeared, the mannequins vanished. Will they ever return? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, it's not that easy to get mannequins that easy. That is strange. Who's the owner of the property? Maybe they're the ones who's doing that. I guess not. If that's not that counts. I would think that's the first thing people assume, that would be the owner of whoever the property is. I don't know. And then they disappear afterwards? Really?
The Count's Curse. Just east of Lake Como in the Italian commune of Cortanova looms a decrepit old mansion. Completed in 1857 for the head of the Italian National Guard, Count Felix de Vecchi, within just a few years it would see such horror that it earned a dark nickname, Casa del Strehi, or the House of Witches.
Oh.
The first sign of things to come happened before the house was even finished, when the villa's architect Alessandro Sedioli passed away.
Oh.
Despite this, the work was finished and the Count and his family enjoyed years of good memories together. Then in 1862, everything changed. One day the Count returned home and stumbled upon a horrific sight. Before him lay his wife, or what remained of her. Distraught, the Count shouted out for his daughter and soon found out that she was gone without a trace. With both of the people he loved most taken from him by some unknown assailant, the Count spent the rest of his years waging a desperate search for his missing child, but to no avail. Eventually, it all became too much for him. Some believe the tragedy was the result of a home invasion or some form of revenge. Others hold the more far-fetched belief that the Count's daughter herself was the culprit. Unfortunately, the truth was never uncovered. The house stayed within the Vecchi family until the Second World War, when they left for good. Other owners tried to live in it after, but by the 1960s it had been abandoned entirely, probably due to its sordid history. These days, the villa has been left to rot, its aching halls gloomy and its rooms littered with graffiti. The last few decades haven't just seen vandals, though. Occultists have allegedly spent nights within the crumbling villa's walls, and tales of ritual sacrifice and further loss of life followed. Of course, that hasn't stopped urban explorers from making the trip, and many of them say they experienced an unshakable feeling of being watched while inside. Anybody else have goosebumps right now?
Well, first of all, if one of the conspiracies is the daughter did, how old was the daughter? Because when I think of that, I think when he said the daughter, I think of like a little kid. Now, if the daughter was a little bit older, like a teenager with some psychotic episodes, but that wasn't mentioned. We don't know. That's speculative. But I was thinking like a child. I was like, a child can't kill the mother. I'm like, you know. So it could be someone he did dirty dealings with. It could have been like a robbery. But it looks like, I was about to say, looks like nature took over. But I think that's what he's going to say. But he said, no, cultists moved in and they brought, you know, curses and Cthulhu along and all this stuff. It's like, oh, Jesus. Oh, well, it's always cultists. It's always the cultists.
Spook on the staircase.
Oh.
At first glance, Raynham Hall is a beautiful English manor house in the county of Norfolk. But this seemingly unassuming home hides some dark secrets. In December 1936, Country Life magazine published this astonishing photo. You're looking at the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, one of the most notorious ghost photographs ever captured. It was taken by a photographer of the magazine on a routine assignment to snap some nice pics of the manor. They got far more than nice. Supposedly, the spirit is Lady Dorothy Walpole, sister to the first English Prime Minister Robert Walpole. She lived in the manor in the 1700s alongside her husband, though their relationship wasn't so rosy. See, Dorothy was having an affair which her husband found out about. There are several stories about what happened next. One of the most popular and haunting goes that when he discovered the transgression, he locked her away in one of the rooms of Raynham. There she remained prisoner, separated from her children for the rest of her life until she finally passed away in 1726 at just 40 years old. True or not, we do know she never made it past 1726. Officially, it was ruled as smallpox, but the rumors of foul play never ceased. In the years since, the Brown Lady has been seen stalking the halls on many occasions, searching for her long-lost children. Even the former King George IV saw the ghost. While staying at the house, he awoke one night to see an unfamiliar woman in old-fashioned clothing leering at the foot of his bed. Terrified, he fled, shouting, "I will not spend another hour in this accursed house, for tonight I have seen that which I hope to God I never see again." As for that photo, well, there's never been any reliable evidence to say whether it's true or a hoax. Some claim that the lady could actually be a smudge on the lens, or someone moving quickly in front. Would a respected photographer really create a fake ghost picture, though? Maybe. I'll leave that one up to you to decide. The Demon Mansion. In upstate New York sits the Crooked Wyckoff Villa, or by its more pleasant nickname, the Demon Mansion.
Yeah, that's
Erected
pleasant.
in 1894 as the dream vacation home of one William O. Wyckoff, it would turn out to be more of a nightmare. Within months of the house being built, Wyckoff's wife had a sudden heart attack and never even got to see it. Still grieving, Wyckoff himself went to spend some time at the mansion, but then he had a heart attack too after just a single night. If that's not fishy, then I've never been amazed. Wyckoff's son inherited the mansion, but the effects of the Great Depression forced him to sell the place in 1930. Following this, contractors were allowed to enter and they stripped the once opulent mansion of its doors and windows before abandoning it. For 70 years, the Demon Mansion sat eerily empty. Despite being put on the market, its tragic past meant nobody wanted to buy it. But a colossal price drop in 2022 led to Floridian real estate investor Ronald Clapp finally making a purchase for $300,000.
Holy shit.
As of writing, Clapp plans to fix up the creepy castle and open it as a bed and breakfast. Yeah, maybe let a few other people spend the night first. In my restless dreams.
If people are having heart attacks in one night, he's going to have some serious lawsuits. I hope he has some insurance.
The movie adaptation of the iconic Silent Hill franchise reworks the origins of the titular town slightly, and its Silent Hill is situated above an eternally burning underground fire with smoke rising from the earth and ash filling the air. Turns out this change was inspired by a real place, Centralia, Pennsylvania. In 1962, the town built a 50-foot landfill to tackle the problem of illegal dumping. It worked, but the landfill itself then needed to be cleared out. Residents came to a seemingly obvious solution: burn the trash. So that's exactly what they did. The fire department safely burned the garbage and doused the flames. All good, right? Except a few days later, the flames came back. Then a few days after that, they came back again. What was going on? To find out, the town excavated the landfill and realized they'd made a huge mistake. See, Centralia is built upon a vast network of coal mines, and a small hole at the bottom of the pit had provided a direct route to them. Essentially, burning trash had been forced through the hole down into the coal mines below, and the fire had spread like an infectious disease.
Yep.
And because of the coal mines, this was no ordinary fire. Poisonous carbon monoxide was being thrown up into the air around the town. Uh-oh. All the mines were shut down and Pennsylvania authorities tried desperately to put out the fires, but nothing worked. Yet people refused to abandon their homes and lived on in the poisoned town. It took around 20 years before they felt the fire's effects in earnest. Yeah. Citizens began passing out in their homes, foliage died, roads collapsed. It was clearly no longer safe to live there. The final straw came in '81 when a 12-year-old boy nearly fell to his doom when a 150-foot deep sinkhole opened right underneath him. The town was evacuated, but amazingly, some people still refused to leave.
Yeah.
At the time of this video's release, there's still a handful of people living in Centralia amidst the barren scenery and toxic fumes. Yeah, no wonder it inspired Silent Hill.
Funny story about that. Not a funny story, but anyway. I used to, and I was a kid up till I was 10 years old. I lived in Pennsylvania. And I remember as a kid, them talking about Centralia. Because Pennsylvania, if you're not familiar, is very well known for coal mining. Very well known for coal mining. So that's kind of, it's crazy that they didn't think about that, because Pennsylvania is a wealth of coal. Just coal mining all over the place in Pennsylvania. So I'm kind of surprised that, they didn't think about that, because Pennsylvania is so rich with coal. So, yeah, but I didn't know until way later, not until we moved here in Florida, when Silent Hill got popular. I found out, that's where they got the inspiration from Centralia, Florida, when I was a kid hearing about those stories about Centralia. So I thought that would be kind of interesting, because I remember hearing about that town as a kid. I didn't think too much about it until way later, until I got into the game Silent Hill, and then I started hearing the stories about it.
Sanatorio Duran, Costa Rica.
Anyway, going back to what I say, there are still people living there. There's actually one guy who's documenting his experience living there. Matter of fact, I saw his channel on YouTube here. He's on here. Blah, blah, blah. He's here on YouTube. I have to find him again. That was like a couple of years ago when I saw him doing an update of him living in Centralia and showing who's still living there. It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town.
1918. Carlos Duran Cartin was a doctor and politician whose daughter was suffering from tuberculosis. Desperate, he opened a hospital in hopes of treating the disease. This is Sanatorio Duran, and rather than a haven, it became known as one of the most haunted places in Costa Rica.
Oh.
Despite Carlos's best efforts, he ultimately lost his daughter. The sanatorium stayed in use until the 60s, however, staffed almost entirely by nuns looking after patients with tuberculosis and mental health issues. Then it was converted into an orphanage and later a prison. Jeez.
Oh, Jesus.
Has this place been used for anything that isn't miserable?
Yeah.
As if to end the suffering, in the 1970s, a nearby volcano erupted and ruined parts of the complex, leading to its closure.
Oh, Jesus.
These days, the place is abandoned, but if locals are to be believed, it's far from empty. The spirits of the nuns that worked at the facility and the patients who suffered there supposedly walk the halls. In fact, a Costa Rican newspaper published this photo of an apparent ghost sighting at the sanatorium. Creepy. But what do you think?
That's
Real life ghost caught on camera? Or did somebody just have a friend stand at the end of the hallway? Let me know in those comments down below.
I feel, this is just me, I don't think it's the nuns going to be there. The reason why I say this, you give up your soul, give up your life for God. The last thing you want to do is be stuck on this fucking God's forsaken planet in an old dilapidated building. After you serve for the Lord, you expect to be like, okay, take me, Lord, and so I could be by you up there or somewhere, wherever it's at. BFE somewhere, wherever heaven's at. Extra, a portal dimension someplace. Not in some dilapidated thing. No. It's probably the more, if anything, it's going to be the ghosts of the patients, because they have no idea what's going on, because they had no idea what's going on in real life, let alone what's going on in the afterlife. But I would think it'd be a shitty thing if you're a nun and you're stuck here in the afterlife. That's just my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I don't think unless they're a crappy nun. Unless you're a really sinful nun, then that's the only reason why you would be stuck here. But I wouldn't think the nuns would be here. That looks like a patient, just from observational.
Chateau Miranda. Tucked away in the wooded Belgian hillside overlooking the small town of Sales sat an unexpected
Belgium.
sight.
I thought it was France.
Chateau Miranda, a grand Gothic castle that was erected back in 1907. The building was commissioned by Count Leodekerke de Beaufort as a home for his family. But despite living there happily for many years, the good times wouldn't last. The Second World War dawned, and the Leodekerke de Beauforts were forced to flee as Belgium was invaded by the Germans and ravaged by their occupation. Chateau Miranda was overtaken by the invaders and became a camp for the German military.
No, I bet it
Heck,
was.
the grounds even saw a portion of the Battle of the Bulge, one of the most famous of the conflict. After the war, things got a little better when the castle was converted into an orphanage and then a summer camp for kids. But it was run by strict disciplinarians, and according to some children, they were subject to horrific abuse. The camp was shut down in the 1970s, and from there the once grand castle steadily decayed. That didn't stop urban explorers from paying a visit, though. Some reported hearing the screams of ghostly children echoing through the dilapidated buildings, while others claimed to have seen the spirits. Could some children have lost their lives there but remained forcefully tethered to the castle? It seems unlikely, but we can't say for sure. Regardless, the crumbling building was eventually demolished in 2017, and we can only hope the ghosts vanished with it.
Crumbled.
The Scarecase. I'm about to show you one of the most iconic and convincing ghost photos ever taken. This spine-tingling snap was taken inside Queen's House, an opulent building in Greenwich, England, with a rich and spooky history. But before we address the spirit on the stairs, let me fill you in. Queen's House was built between 1616 and 1619 by King James I as an apology to his wife. See, he'd committed the heinous act of swearing at her after she shot his dog. Right. Unfortunately for her, it wouldn't be completed until 1630, long after she was gone. So could the ghost be her, enjoying in death what she couldn't in life? It's not quite so simple. During the English Civil
Bruh. I'm not gonna apologize for shit. You killed my dog. You're lucky I didn't shoot you. Talk about, he cursed at her after she shot his dog. You're lucky back in them days that's all he did was they used to beat the shit out of you with a fucking ruler as big as their thumb.
War, the building was used to house prisoners, and afterwards it became an orphanage, a hospital, school, and finally a museum. So there's plenty of opportunity for it to have picked up a ghostly guest. The infamous photo was taken in 1966 by one Reverend Ralph Hardy who'd been visiting the museum. He was totally alone and only saw the specter when he had the photo developed. Shocked, Hardy sent the snap to Kodak to have it analyzed, and they concluded that the image hadn't been tampered with. Very weird. It looks like the figure is desperately clawing its way up the stairs.
Okay, let's look at the... Oh, okay, I can see what... I was looking for, like, those normal... this white blob on the staircase. That's why it was the normal MO. Okay, yeah, I could see something like that. Maybe because she's in agony for killing a dog. How about that? Maybe you should be in agony. Clawing at this thing. You should be clawing. Yeah, you should be for killing a dog.
The pic caused a media storm, and a group of paranormal enthusiasts even held a seance in the house in an attempt to contact the spirit.
Yeah, bring back
As
more
far
bad
as I'm
juju.
aware, it was unsuccessful. But who was it? Well, some say that a maid was once thrown over the staircase, and others claim to have seen her ghost mopping up blood at the base of the stairwell. Could it be her? Is the image even real at all? Whatever the truth, I know I won't be sleeping tonight. The Cursed Family. Mausoleums are creepy places at the best of times. The Bobda Mausoleum in Romania, however, is something else entirely. Completed in 1908 and constructed by the wealthy Baron Gyula Chavosi, it was once a beautiful piece of architecture. Just 3 years after the mausoleum's completion, though, it was already needed. Both the Baron and his wife passed away in 1911 and were buried in the crypt beneath the structure. Far from being over, however, the family's troubles had only just begun. Their huge fortune was taken and divided between the village community. Jump forward to the 1950s and the new communist mayor of Bobda desecrated the mausoleum crypt in search of precious objects to nationalize. Then, in something straight out of a horror movie, a group of teenagers broke in.
That greed, boy, that greed. You know, the spirits don't like when you start messing with their, there's certain, the Egyptians were big on that. You know, those Egyptian curses. You start, taking things and start, you're gonna wake up some spirits. You're gonna get some. They're gonna get your ass, Mr. Postman.
Side and played soccer with the remains of the Baron and his family.
What?
That's horrific. The remains were moved to avoid another grisly event, but the mausoleum was left to be ravaged by nature. These days, it's a mess. All that's left is show of a once great family. Ask me, no family can have that much bad luck without being cursed.
So the wealth was distributed through the little town there? Was that part of the deal, or they just all ransacked the house after? That's interesting. They divided up the wealth in the town? How'd they do that? Did they just come and just, I don't know.
The House on the Hill. One chilly day in the fall of 2022, Ontario adventurer Rhythm Rider was out hiking when he discovered the carcass of a battered house, crooked and alone on an otherwise barren hilltop. The dilapidated home stuck out like a sore thumb against the tranquil surroundings. What the heck was this scary-looking place? The hideout of a criminal? The site of some great tragedy? Bravely or stupidly, Ryder checked the door. It was unlocked. Then he stepped inside. Dirty animal cages were everywhere, the ceiling was caved in, and all the walls were lined with filth. But at the same time, there was a relatively modern TV and dozens of half-empty drink bottles covering the tables. Ugh.
Those are piss bottles, sir.
Was somebody still living here? Oh man, Ryder got the heck out of there and started to do some research.
That's something I could have done without seeing piss bottles. Thank you very much.
Months of graft later, and all that studying led him to the truth. The house had once belonged to a strange man who was obsessed with breeding dogs. The animals were kept in horrendous conditions and horribly neglected, existing only for the breeder to sell for a quick buck. Rumors swirled in the area about the man being dangerous, and the dogs he sold weren't much better. The horrid environment they were raised in left them with terrible dispositions and extreme behavioral issues.
That's a shame.
Then one day in 2013, the mysterious breeder fell off the face of the earth. To this day, nobody knows where he went or why he disappeared. Hopefully, he'll never return.
Hopefully.
Ryder sure won't. A familial tragedy. The Second World War was the single most destructive conflict in human history. But the front lines were far from the only place that felt its horrors. This is the Redmond Hirahara House south of Watsonville, California. Purchased by the Japanese-American Hirahara family in 1940, the family barely lived there 2 years before disaster struck.
Jesus.
In December 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and as a result, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued a drastic executive order. Japanese Americans were viewed as a national security risk and to be forcibly removed from the West Coast and sent to internment camps. It wasn't long before the Hiraharas too were rounded up and forced out. It's hard to imagine how traumatic that must have been. Thrown out of their stunning mansion, they were sent off to a depressing, sparsely furnished barracks and kept trapped inside with barbed wire. Thankfully, come the end of the war in 1945, the Hiraharas were freed and returned to their family home, which was luckier than many. There they stayed until 1989, when an earthquake forced them to leave again. The Redmond Hirahara house has sat abandoned ever since. Now it sits in lonely tatters as a monument to the historic suffering endured by Japanese Americans. And that's scarier than any ghost.
That's a shame.
The Mausoleum Monster. Deep within the woods of Poland sits a lone mausoleum that no one should enter. One Emil Becker, the prior owner of the area, was laid to rest here after his death in 1891. Since, strange things started happening. The mausoleum was looted of all its valuables, and Becker's body was even supposedly dug up and posed in different positions around the building.
Oh, Jesus.
Man, who would do that? And why? But it's not just the past that haunts this place. Within its bowels lives a terrifying entity, and it's been caught on camera. Brace yourself, because this is the demon of the mausoleum. Okay, I know it isn't really a monster, but it's still super creepy. The disturbing statue lurks menacingly within the mausoleum walls, waiting to jump scare any unaware visitors.
Are you serious?
But why is it there? Some sort of devil worship? Not quite. It's actually a prop left over from the filming of a 2017 horror movie named Redwood. I can't speak for the quality of the movie, but the prop sure is effective. So much so it's become a popular attraction in the area. Too popular, in fact. Sadly, vandals took it upon themselves to destroy the statue. And although it was rebuilt, they returned and set fire to it, scorching the entire mausoleum at the same time. Unbelievably, though, they couldn't quite finish the job. The remains of the demon still stand tall.
All right. So, first of all, that explains a whole lot. Okay, they had a film crew. They put up that. Okay, I was like, who would come up with, unless you're some six? The original order put that in it. No, okay, that makes more sense. I was like, okay, devil worshiping. Gonna put the body up in different positions. Thing, you're so disrespectful. Whoever it is, kids do shit like that. Some of these places have some wild backstories. And some of them just really are just sad. You know, just the most annoying one was the woman who killed the dog. That really just still puts a burr under my saddle. And then he cursed at her, so he apologized. Nah, screw you. You killed my dog. Let me know what you thought in the comments, which one you thought was a little bit creepier, or what you thought in the comments. And it was pretty good. I like this. BeAmazed. Nice little animations he put in there. Nice voice. Great narration. I really enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments. And take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Peace and peace. And bye.